Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Today is Friday, May 30th, 2025, and only a few more days, says Danielle Smith, until we find out if the government is going to change course. I think we found out already. Like, the whole election was rigged. They prorogued government because we were going to fire them. And now we're in a new situation that's exactly the same as the old situation. I think we know. There are indications, Danielle Smith. I think we have an idea. I think he said already he's not going to repeal Bill C-69. He's not going to repeal any of the caps or anything like that. He's doing all of the same stuff, just a little bit differently. So I'm not expecting any kind of even easing off the gas on any of the policies. In fact, I think they're going to jump on the gas and jump on the accelerator, and we're going to go faster if they can. And it seems like they can, so I hope I'm wrong about that. Sir John A. Macdonald is coming back to Toronto, and it's interesting. He's been under a box for 5 years, and like since 2020, 5 years, right? Black Lives Matter, and cover up that prime minister, that former prime minister, that founding prime minister of our country, in a box, and then forget about it, right? And now we're getting it back. It seems really interesting. We'll see if people tear down the statue or what happens next. I have no idea, but apparently the box is coming off. Liz May is back with another genocide. So, LGBT genocide, she says. I don't know about that, Liz May. And fluoridation of water. We're going to watch a little bit of Dr. Strangelove later to remind Calgarians where we're at, right, Mandrake? Do you know, Mandrake, that you're 70% water, buddy? Have you ever seen a Russian drink water? It's a very interesting question. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, there are 193 countries in the world, says Stephen. And 193 countries have signed up to Agenda 2030. The UN's Agenda 2030, right? It's a big club and everybody's in it. Everybody's paid off with the US tax dollars, US aid money, right? Like, you better join. Otherwise, you've got two ways to join. One way is the nice way, and we bribe you and everything works out well for you. And the other way is maybe you say no. Maybe you guys have a big earthquake. And then after that, you're in the club too, because you don't have a choice. Very, very interesting. We already have a one world government. That's why they're able to do this. They already control every country. I don't think that's wrong. I think that's pretty accurate, actually. Scary, right? It's pretty accurate. Dallas Brody, who is talking about all of the stuff going on with the rigged election in BC. This is our grab bag of election news. She's pushing back and saying there hasn't been a report, even though they said they were going to have a report. But the remanded, this guy, produced a report, right? And the report is like pretty solid. He says, my team of 4 have produced a 300-page plus report deemed that Chinese-led inquiry into the BC election. It's thorough and factually based, with all information taken from Election BC, Elections Canada, media, and correspondence. Since no one has taken our plight seriously, I've retained a lawyer for this exact reason. There is and has been no interest or accountability. 92 MLAs, yourself included, Dallas Brody, had received this report, short version and audio version, having put and continue to put 600 plus hours of our time into it. Why did 1,000 votes show up without detail in the May 27th report? Let's start there. We keep going. So it's crazy. Dallas Brody says the NDP has broken its promise to investigate Elections BC. They formed a do-nothing committee on, quote, electoral reform. It's been 7 months, and they haven't produced a single report on last year's election. Surprise? No, because we are given the illusion of democracy. We're told, oh yeah, totally go vote. Your vote really matters. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And then they put Mark Carney in, or they put in Dave Eby, or whoever it is that they put in, who's totally on board with the current plan and is going to sell it to us in maybe different language, maybe not even different language. And we are incapable of holding anybody accountable. It is not possible, even if you want to. Like, this guy has everything that he could possibly need to nail these people to the wall. Nobody's listening to him, and they won't listen to him, because that's how they win. They have full control of everything to do with elections, counting elections, judiciary, review, anything, all of it. They have control of everything they need, and it's not full control of the whole apparatus, just the key moving parts, right? That's it. You have 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 key people in places, right? Mid-level, senior level, top level. You got a couple people there, and they can do anything they want to any piece of legislation they want. Oh, this is wrong. You didn't dot this I. This I is not, I don't know what this says, right? Psh, gone. It's not, it doesn't pass the basic standard of a submitted appeal. Sorry about your luck, man, right? Next time. But our elections are rigged. Make no mistake about it. But the Conservatives were some people were saying the Conservatives ran a bad campaign. I said I thought Poilievre's campaign was better than Mark Carney's campaign. Although I also said there's a whole dark underbelly that we're not talking about, which is the Khalistani Sikh invasion of the Conservative Party. It's really, really interesting. And nobody seems like they want to talk about that very much at all. And so the Buckywell says, Buck, what is the top 3 reason that the Conservatives lost the election? Well, it's rigged. That's number 1. But yeah, this Khalistani kowtowing is, that might be a good name for the show, would have been another reason. And I talked about this during the race. I was saying, if they're not Sikh themselves, they're married to a Sikh. Very interesting, right? The person who was in Neepan, right? And Mark Carney won that. She was married to a Sikh as well in the Gurdwara, and they both showed up at the same place, right? At the same temple. So that's interesting. And so the Conservatives went all in on pandering, and it didn't work out. But our elections are rigged. But it's very interesting because the pandering wasn't to who you'd expect, right? I read a stat that there are more Sikh MPs in Canada than there are in India. So that's weird, right? Isn't that weird? Here's the Macdonald Laurier Institute, and they say there's a growing sense on both sides of the Canada-US border that something's very wrong when it comes to our security. Investigative journalist Sam Cooper joins MLI's Peter Copeland to discuss the threats Canada faces and the kind of political will and policy approaches it will take to overcome them, which we're not going to do. So he says, if you start tracking the money, follow the money and you'll find the answers. So obviously Canada will close its eyes and not follow the money because Canada doesn't want the answers.
So if you start tracking what's coming in, that is one half of the problem. If you start chasing, as the DEA, when they're enabled, and the FBI chase the actual kingpins, and you get that other side of the equation where you've got the system and technically tracking, but you're going after the actual people that are running the show in Canada, right? So you're attacking the problem from both sides in a smart way. Absolutely, you will crush the curve of fentanyl deaths. But what I add is, and again, I don't want to be cynical, but I've heard from enough people, I don't want to be controversial either, but there's enough smart people in the US and Canada that say there just seems to be just a strange heel-dragging and political impediment to going after some of these, what intelligence knows are kingpins. And I'm going to assert, I'm going to raise the question, are they people that are important in the election interference networks for China? Are they people that are important in the Iranian political influence networks that are involved in currency shops, that are involved in underground banking? I don't know. I'm not trying to raise a conspiracy here, but I've seen it. I know enough of them are. I'm just going to come out and say it, and say it's going to take some political courage to go after the big fish in Canada.
The big fish is the government. The big fish runs all of the important parts. And whether it's officially the government or not, it doesn't matter at this point in time. Well, I'll show you. Andy Lee's talking about RCMP stifling investigations, and I don't know exactly where it is, so I can't jump to it right now. I wish I could. But up to somebody at a high level, up to the minister himself or herself, stifled an investigation, the RCMP, putting CSIS in danger. And so when Sam Cooper says it's going to be a lot of political courage to go after the big fish, I don't think that you can go after the big fish. I think that the big fish, if you start even getting close to them, they'll shut you down in ways that you didn't expect they could. And because they have the whole power of the state behind them. Juno News, we'll get to the CSIS thing in just a minute, I promise. Juno News says, today voices initially critical of the dollar-for-dollar retaliation like Shopify's CEO and Rumble's CEO are vindicated. Retaliatory tariffs were a harebrained idea from the start. Anybody who said that was silenced and made fun of or cast off, like the CEO of Rumble and the CEO of Lutke, I don't know what that is. CEO of Shopify, excuse me, were not listened to. They were largely ignored. And the people like me talking about it, again, it wasn't taken seriously. And now people can say, oh yeah, obviously this was a bad idea. It was obvious then too. I find it very, very interesting that Juno News didn't report on it before the before the election was over, right? Isn't that odd? And a month later, now they're saying, oh yeah, that obviously harebrained idea that we didn't mention during the time when it was being proposed, obviously harebrained. So you're welcome, says Juno News. So our media lies to us through omission, and that's weird. Should be something that's noticeable or notable. Here's our grab bag of governance, and David Jacobs is responding to Mark Carney. And Mark Carney says, Canadians elected this new government with a strong mandate. This is May 29th. This is yesterday that he said this. To bring down costs and help you get ahead. The work starts with a tax cut for the middle class taking effect on July 1st. David says, Canadians elected a minority government. That's the antithesis, the opposite of a strong mandate. Yeah, that's not a strong mandate. It is not even close to a strong mandate. I mean, it's close to a majority government, but I was worried they were going to count their way to a majority government. I'm kind of surprised that they didn't, but that is not a strong mandate, regardless of what Mark Carney says. Here is Veterans for Britain, and we were talking previously about how Canada is trying to join up with the EU's military agreement, military alliance thing. And yesterday, I actually talked with Veterans for Britain. He wants to come on Speaking Moistly. And he said, well, we can talk about it apolitically, right? And I said, oh, no, that's not what this is. I'm very, very political, but I laugh about it a lot. I said I told him that I have family in England and so on and so forth. So we had quite a fun conversation. So he may come on Speaking Moistly. We're talking about it. He said afterwards that it would still be fun, and he thinks it would be fun to come on and chat about and help educate Canadians about what's going on. But he does a good job in this thread, so we'll read it. Veterans for Britain said, "This is not a real plan from Mark Carney." He's responding to BBC News. And it says, Carney says he wants Canada to join major European defense plan. This is not a real plan from Mark Carney. Canada will not be a real participant in the EU's sovereign defense funding schemes, as it would require Canada surrendering sovereignty. We love doing that. Are you kidding me? Holy, so can we surrender more sovereignty, please? Anyway, instead, the EU and Canada will create a non-binding instrument which simply promises more talks. Yep, I think that's accurate. He says the EU demands non-EU countries, it calls them third states, to align with its foreign policy, contribute funds, earmark further funds, bring value on EU territory, and subscribe to a punishing system adjudicated by the EU if the EU felt Canada is not pulling its weight. We definitely won't be pulling our weight. Canada would also be obliged to guarantee that every piece of defense procurement, and all, not some, would be done jointly with the EU by default. Canada would have to give reasons if it chose otherwise, assessed by the EU. Divergence from EU foreign and defense policy would be punishable by the EU via wider trade and restrictions or a freeze on Canadian firms' investment in EU defense projects. Canadian divergence from EU participation conditions would also be punishable in the same way. Veterans for Britain continues. Canadian shipbuilding and defense industry has benefited from the full use of World Trade Organization rules, WTO rules and exemptions, yet compliance with the rules of sovereign EU defense schemes would mean closing these opportunities. It would prevent Canadian preference in Canadian defense procurement. Canadians would never accept these conditions. You don't know. I'm not sure about that at this point in time. Honestly, I've got to tell you. If you told Canadians supporting this is the same as supporting Brexit, or if you told Canadians that they had to do this, they would say, we love the EU. We'd love to do this. Oh gosh, yes, it's so worth it. And then the talking heads would all say the same nonsense, and the rational voices would be drowned out until weeks later when the news reports, oh yeah, by the way, doing this is not actually possible because it would violate this and this and this and this and this, or whatever. But anyway, they don't report it until after it's done, and nothing can be done to fix it anyway. So they say, oh yeah, all the people who were objecting about this were right all along. Yep, absolutely. Anyway, he says Canadians would never accept these conditions. After Canada and the EU sign a potential and non-binding agreement in the summer, they will start talks which go nowhere. So the question is, why would the EU or Carney conduct this charade? Because the EU and the UK government are trying to dupe the British public into accepting the above arrangements. The EU and Starmer must convince Brits that Canada is doing the same thing. Carney is happy to assist this deception. I think that's exactly right. We're not going to... The honesty is... absent from our government. I think there's a constant psyop going on, and it's been constant since COVID-19, but maybe even before that. I don't know where it started. COVID-19 seems an obvious break point, like an obvious starting point, but I think it was happening even before that. So Kirk says, our Prime Minister, Mark Carney, thinks that freedom is earned and is not something that you are born with, inherent. You can use public spaces unless First Nations want them for themselves. We are building black only homeless shelters. Greens Elizabeth May thinks we have an LGBT genocide in Canada. We'll get there in a sec. NDP Heathers McPherson has a petition in Parliament to not let Donald Trump in until he stops hurting her feelings. What is going on in Canada? Right. Yeah. So there's a lot of problems with what's going on. Garnet Genius says liberal policies are causing an unemployment crisis. Time to change course. And so Garnet Genius has been appointed the shadow minister for employment, and he blames liberal policies, Bill C-69 and C-38, for killing jobs. I think it's odd that nobody wants to address the stolen election. I think and I know that politically it's toxic, but you have to figure out a way to address it, because going along like it's business as usual and, oh shucks, we'll get him next time. Nope. I'm not going to go along with it. I think this government is illegitimate, and I'm going to say it every grab bag of governance while this government sits, because I think it's not legitimate, because I think that the election is rigged. And I'm sorry if you don't like that, but here we are. Here's the CSIS thing that I was teasing earlier and probably should have been earlier, but sorry about that. Here is Andy Lee, and she says, this is disturbing details in the new NSIRA report. The CSIS team told NSIRA that they felt abandoned, and they believed that the absence of a government decision was a decision. CSIS team felt forced to plan alternative action to help ensure their own safety. And so here it is. It says, NSIRA found that Redacted halted an active operation, creating unnecessary danger for the CSIS team, Redacted, and caused harm to Canada's international reputation. So what's the argument here is somebody above CSIS is pulling the strings, and Andy Lee's kind of going through it here. The direction to halt Redacted operation occurring was the result of Redacted, and first came from the National Security and Intelligence Advisor to the Prime Minister to the Director of CSIS. NSIRA found that Redacted halted an active operation, creating unnecessary danger for the CSIS team. So people were saying this comes right from the top, right? So who is the Redacted that stopped this operation? Is it the minister? Is it the Prime Minister? Right? So who? I don't know. But it's very, very interesting. And it seems like the government themselves are protecting the apparatus that they've built that is, I don't think, working for us, but is working for them and maybe their globalist masters, maybe the United Nations. I don't know, but it certainly isn't working for us. And when somebody gets close, they have whoever is necessary to stifle the operation, right? You make a call to the director of CSIS. Do you have the number for the director of CSIS? I don't. Right? And so I couldn't make that call. Could any minister make that call? Right? Hello, I'm a backbenching minister, right? Could you stop this investigation now? You've got it, minister. I just don't think that's going to happen, right? It's not your random minister from Newfoundland or from Calgary or something like that, right? It's not happening. They're not making phone calls. It's a minister. If it's a minister, it's the applicable minister. And if it's not the applicable minister, then it's the Prime Minister. And so, wow, right? So that kind of stuff's concerning. And when you try and go after the big fish, somebody calls the CSIS director to say, call off the investigation. And they do, regardless of the safety of the agents. Weird, right? Super weird in Canada. Here's Blacklock's reporter, and they're reporting Green MP Elizabeth May is wasting our time by sponsoring a petition claiming LGBTQ genocide in Canada. So Elizabeth May is more and more irrelevant as the days go on. How long are we going to let her stay in Parliament to support the Liberals? It's ridiculous. With her gone, when she goes, I think the Green Party goes with her. I don't think the Green Party is staying in power any longer after she's done. And how many more cycles do you think she's got in her? I don't know. They'll weekend at Bernie her as long as possible. Juno News is reporting Premier Doug Ford's Ontario government will remove the wooden box that has been placed over Sir John A. Macdonald statue at Queen's Park. Read more. So that's interesting, right? So Sir John A. will return and watch for people to say, oh, colonialism, and pull things down while celebrating the king. Ha. Sam Cooper is responding to himself and a dangerous experiment. Doctors say ideological Canadian governments ignored evidence as safer supply drugs exacerbated the fentanyl death surge. And he says what Canada has chosen to do to address opioid overdoses is unique. Regent Strife states of her findings released today. No other country would envision a policy in which people with opiate addiction are simply given bottles of opiate pills with the assumption that this will solve their risk of overdose death. Yeah, you're addicted to opium. You like opium? Here's some opium that we laced with your opium because we heard you liked it. I hope you don't overdose. Okay, Canadian government solution, right? Hand the drug addicts drugs that they'll probably overdose with. I think it's soft made. I think that they're encouraging people to kill themselves in order to hand the country over to whoever's coming in. And I think they're in a catch-22. I think that financially the country doesn't work unless we see that level of immigrants because they've screwed themselves over. And I think that if you're a person who ideologically wants to fix things and you walk in and you realize the state of the mess you're in and the austerity you need to push and the services that people will lose if you actually genuinely fix this, you lose your nerve. People will come in and say you're going to cause a depression with what you're doing. These are millions of people's lives that you're playing with, and you lose your nerve, right? And so it's like a big poker game, and like if you lose, like what they've done to Donald Trump will also be done to you. You know what I mean? And you lose before you even start because they know the script that's going to scare the hell out of you. And they can do it. They can manipulate the banks and screw the Canadian economy. I think they've done it a bunch of times already to Donald Trump. And the only thing that saved the United States is that Donald Trump is a businessman with a lot of acumen, and he's fast to make decisions. He does things that people don't expect. And that's not to say he's perfect. It's just that he understands the game he's in, and he reacts and is not, well, with Ukraine, it seems like he surrounded himself with bad advisors. With other things, economic things, it seems like he surrounded himself with people who do know. The stock market seems to be tolerating the tariffs. Things seem to be more stable than they were a month ago. So we'll see about all that. But they can definitely tank people's economy. And if you walk in and say, I'm going to fix this, and you're, new sheriff's in town, they'll say, oh yeah, sheriff, what happens when everybody's starving? Right? And you say, uh-oh. And maybe you see it start to happen. Maybe you don't. Maybe an earthquake happens. Maybe it doesn't. Right? So I don't know, man. There's all sorts of very concerning things going on. Here's a very concerning stabbing that happened in Pickering. There was a message sent to shelter in place because of somebody on the loose with a knife, and the person, a 13-year-old person, I don't know if it's a migrant person, but that's implied maybe, stabbed an elderly woman who was outside of her home and then ran away. So National Post is reporting police arrest 13-year-old after fatal attack on elderly woman in Pickering, Ontario. So that's insane. We are importing these people, and then when they attack and kill citizens in Canada, the mayor of Pickering, Kevin, says the Pickering suspect who allegedly stabbed a random elderly woman multiple times was, quote, affected by the burden of mental health, and that the, quote, arrest was troubling because it would have an impact on his life. Yeah, what about the dead elderly woman? The whole thing is ridiculous. And so we're in a situation where I think we're encouraging this through bad policy, both our like social policies on the ground and our immigration policies, and it's leading to a situation where people feel emboldened. Well, look at what happened to that kid who stabbed the other kid, the black kid who stabbed the white kid at the track meet. He's got millions of dollars. He's being treated like a star. His whole family's living in gated community. They're being treated great. Like, I think he thinks to himself, well, that's the best thing I ever did. Right? So like, why would you think that you'd get treated any other way? It's insane. I mean, like, you should think that you'd be treated any other way because that's what a sane society would imagine. But I don't think we live in a sane society at this point in time. Arson is back, the Globe and Mail, which is a ragmag that's on the scale of the National Enquirer at this point in time. They're laughable with the stuff they report. It's ridiculous. Sometimes they get it right, but a lot of times they're lying to you. But they say Saskatchewan declares state of emergency as wildfires force evacuations in Western Canada. Of course, they're wrong. It's arson, but potato, right? Interesting that we're seeing this right after Mark Carney's reelected. It's a psyop, and I feel like this is another layer of the psyop. And wildfires were not something that happened in Canada even up to 2020. It wasn't something that was happening regularly. And so there was an Alberta wildfire, the Fort McMurray wildfire. When did that happen? 2016, something like that. And again, it is the responsibility of Canadian government to manage the forests. And I'm suspect that we've had pine beetles and all sorts of other things kill a bunch of trees, and the trees are sitting there as deadwood. And if you get a bad lightning strike, we don't have the resources to stop these fires. We're setting ourselves up for this. And then saying, oh no, it's climate change. It's nonsense. We're setting ourselves up for this, and we're being lied to about it. Anyway, Anthony Fury says, the city of Toronto is currently destroying the Esplanade by putting a useless bike lane on it. Locals and businesses are speaking up to oppose it, but now radical, angry bike activists who don't even live there are attacking the business. Shameful. They know their strategy, and they use it with success over and over and over again. And it does work, man. Laurie Goldstein says, Ontario to give education minister power to more easily take over school boards. The first thing I would do if I was the premier, I would set up a tax agency that removed the ability for the federal government to collect taxes, and then I would collect the federal taxes, and then I would refuse to remit them until the federal government fell in line and proved that the election wasn't rigged and that they don't work for China. And then the second thing that I would do is liquidate the school boards. All of them would be fired. Everybody would be fired. All the money for school and education would go back to the parents, and the parents would be able to set up schools. And then I think it would all be charter schools, and the government would be charged with making sure that the schools weren't indoctrinating kids into nonsense ideologies and would make the kids able to read and write and do math. And if they tried to do anything else, the people doing that would be fired by me personally. Hi, I'm the premier. You're fired. Get out. See you later. I'd probably do it by Zoom just for efficiency's sake, but I'd do it in person for the directors of education and all of the bureaucrats who are lying to our children. Twig says the boards are out of control. When they no longer answer to the parents or even listen to them, they censor them, remove them from meetings, take away their basic human rights. It's time to remind them who's paying for their livelihood, and remove the ones breaching the United Nations law. I've worked with teachers just to make sure that people understand where my beef is. My beef is with the bureaucrats who are pushing the ideological indoctrination of kids. My beef is with the short-haired, purple-haired, rainbow-haired Karens who are very, very powerful in a small pond like a school, and who push their ideology on everybody else with impunity. That's my beef. I know there are great teachers. I know there are great principals, great administrators, great people who care about kids who work in schools. I know. So I want to be able to make schools where kids feel safe and cared about by the people who work there. And those people who work there feel like they can say, hey, stop telling Timmy that he can be a girl because that's pretty effing crazy. I'm going to call their parents. And the person who's indoctrinating the kid would get in trouble, not the person calling the parents. You see what I'm saying? I want schools that work. I want schools that parents have confidence in. And I think the only way to do that is to give 100% control to the parents through monetary and hiring, firing school trustees that can only be parents of the kids. And those trustees and the principal can hire and fire through and have mechanisms to question teachers who are behaving inappropriately. And the principal would probably work for the government. But again, to make sure reading, writing, arithmetic, and not indoctrination are the order of the day. This is not hard. Like, this would be day one, hour one. Like, give me the pen, for crying out loud. That's not how it works, I know, but still, it's not hard. We could fix this, and we don't, and we should. So it's in fact our responsibility to fix it. So Colin DeMello is talking about this. Within minutes of it being tabled, the bill has passed all three readings. So the Ford government is lifting a years-long pay freeze. I think it went in 2016 at Queen's Park, raising MPPs' salaries by 35%. Base salary of an MPP would raise from $116,000 to $157,000. So there you go. You got a new part-time job, right? Part-time job adding 30 grand to your 40 grand to your salary. Holy smokeronies, right? That's a lot of money. $41,000 extra. Jeepers creepers. That's crazy town, right? Don't you think? Here is a study done out. We have to do Calgary. We have to do the fluoridation of water before we kill the stream. And Alberta as well, because we've got some separation stuff. Oh my gosh, there's so many things. I digress. In this one, 7 months ago, Ohio started allowing citizens to carry concealed firearms without permits. I didn't know Ohio was concealed carry. That's great. That's higher on my list. A study has found that gun crime rates have since decreased in 6 of the 8 largest cities in that state. Yeah, man, you get polite when driving in states with concealed carry. I guess I'm polite when I drive anyway. Kirk is talking about the fluoridation of water. And have you ever seen Dr. Strangelove? It's a weird movie. It's Kubrick, right? And didn't Kubrick record that thing for the government that one time? Anyway, Kirk says fluoride will be added by the city of Calgary to our drinking water, even though it goes against the science. It goes against science, and they are using a plebiscite that many people didn't vote in, and neither did the other communities that this will be forced upon. It also goes against the UCP's Bill of Rights, which they don't care about, which shows you that it was nothing but a political theater. As usual, City of Calgary doesn't care for dialogue, so it blocked comments. And so City of Calgary is announcing starting June 30th, 2025, fluoride will start being reintroduced into Calgary's drinking water. This decision was made by City Council following a plebiscite in the 2021 civic general election where 62% of voters supported fluoridation. So that's not great. That's not good at all. Ray says the most advanced country in the world, the United States, just banned fluoridation of water supply on evidence it has negative health impacts, including lowering IQ. What does the city of Calgary do? What does the city of Calgary and Alberta know that the U.S. government doesn't know? And so Nicole says, I do not consent to this medical treatment. And that's a violation of the UCP's Bill of Rights. And nothing at all is going to happen at all. Sheldon says, on behalf of the city of Calgary and those I hope to represent, I've submitted the following requests to Premier Smith, Minister of Health, Minister of Municipal Affairs, and Minister of Justice. This is not a debate about whether water fluoridation is effective. This is a matter of informed consent, and the decision to fluoridate Calgary's water supply stands in direct conflict with the Alberta Bill of Rights Amendment Act 24, which protects individuals from being subjected to medical treatment without consent. Yes, and here is Dr. Strangelove to give us an idea of why this is bad, and he's right. Like, he's exactly right. You are mostly water. If you drink water that is tainted with fluoride, that could have an impact on your body because the water that you sweat out is replaced by the stuff you drink. If the stuff you drink has fluoride in it, then it'll permeate in your cells and maybe it'll change things. Who knows? And there is evidence that it does change things indeed. Okay, so here is Dr. Strangelove. Kubrick. I know I've said that before, but wild, right? Here we go.
Mandrake.
Yes, Jack?
Have you ever seen a commie drink a glass of water?
Well, yeah, I can't say I have, Jack.
Vodka. That's what they drink, isn't it? Never water?
Well, I believe that's what they drink, Jack, yes.
On no account will a commie ever drink water, and not without good reason.
Oh, yes. I can't quite see what you're getting at, Jack.
Water. That's what I'm getting at, water. Mandrake, water is the source of all life. 7/10 of this Earth's surface is water. Why, do you realize that 70% of you is water?
Oh, Lord.
And as human beings, you and I need fresh, pure water to replenish our precious bodily fluids.
Yes.
Are you beginning to understand?
Yes.
Mandrake. Mandrake, have you never wondered why I drink only distilled water or rainwater and only pure grain alcohol?
Well, it did occur to me, Jack, yes.
Have you ever heard of a thing called fluoridation? Fluoridation of water?
Yes, I have heard of that, Jack, yes. Yes.
Well, do you know what it is?
No, I don't know what it is now.
Do you realize that fluoridation is the most monstrously conceived and dangerous communist plot we have ever had to face?
Right? So, what do you think? Do you think this city of Calgary is doing for your good? Or do you think maybe it's not so, there's something else going on here? I don't know, but it seems very strange. People are noticing yesterday it was windy in Calgary, and they put out a weather statement. So YEG Waves says an emergency alert for destructive winds has been issued in Edmonton. A lot of people are saying, like, this is a nothing burger. What are you talking about? Windy? Like, oh, I had to put my window wipers on. Like, I was driving and then I had to put the window wipers on. That was it. You know, it's a little bit windy, I guess. So people were making fun. This guy said it interrupted my hockey game. Holy cow, right? Like, the emergency alert system on your smart TV, you will pay attention to our emergency alert. Do we have time? Yeah, we got to talk about Alberta separation. David Bexty is highlighting Alberta separation. And if you guys continue to do what you're doing, FO, everybody, you've been put on notice. Here is David Bexty to tell the House of Commons.
Alberta separatism is no longer a fringe idea. I heard it at the doors more times than I can count. And I'll tell you plainly, Alberta staying in Confederation is not up to me, and it's not up to the Liberal government. It's up to the people of Alberta. And the Albertans know that they have options. If this House continues to insult, abuse, and neglect Alberta, if it refuses to treat our people and our industries with the respect that they've earned, then the future of this country is not guaranteed. Alberta separatism is no longer...
It's fiery, right? It's fiery. Here is Danielle Smith, and she's talking about the oil sands, et cetera, et cetera. But I've got to say goodbye to the stream. So thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll catch you tomorrow. And Sunday, we'll be doing the kitchen table talk as well. So I'm looking forward to that. I thought it was Saturday for half a second. Okay, we'll catch the stream tomorrow. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful